if you do what you love, people say success will come. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it certainly has been true for you. So I like to think it is true in general. So I think it also takes hard work. It takes hard work too. We can't just be like, do what you love and then expect it to happen. It's do what you love, commit, work hard, and show up every day to do the hard work, and then success will come, right?
Absolutely. It's the pairing of passion and discipline. Those two things. I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot. I'm going to do a future podcast on it, but I'm not always motivated. I'm not always inspired, but I always have to show up. Welcome back to the Paint Method podcast. Hopefully you're coming back. If not, welcome for the first time. My name is David Garibaldi. And, thank you for listening or watching. You can follow this podcast on all platforms. So Spotify, Apple, Google, and Amazon. You can also subscribe to watch this on YouTube. And that's the best way to support these podcasts. We don't have any ads. We're not doing ads for a very long time because I just want to give you some quality content. So best way to support is to either share it or follow. Most of you probably already follow me at this point, but if not, you can follow me at Garibaldi Arts on all social platforms as well. And we do giveaways and exclusive updates through my text number, which is 916-866-8101. Now, this podcast is all about paint, which is not necessarily about art, but about our creative journey and how we use paint, passion, action, intent, new, and teach. And I hope that we can inspire your mindset as you're building your ideas, your brand, your business, or your life, wherever you are. And I want this place to be a source of inspiration and also actual tools you can use on your journey. So our next guest is definitely going to help us with that. And as a disclaimer, this is not legal advice from this point on. I say that because to most people, law is not sexy at all. It's a subject that most of us avoid at all costs, and we also associate with negative things. But as a creator or someone building an idea, it can be life-saving, especially in a world that's constantly changing in the world of art, entertainment, and technology. But our guest, Scott Hervey, is an entertainment, intellectual property, and business attorney. He works in a whole bunch of different industries, but Scott was part of my early team. He's one of the most important people that helped me take this dream and turn it into an idea. And he's advised me a lot throughout my time and building this brand. But he gives a lot of his expertise and guidance on as a creator or business owner, how we can use and understand intellectual property to build our dreams and bring them to life. We talk about everything from defining what is intellectual property, why is it important, how to protect our ideas, and also the convergence of art and technology. We also give some practical advice as well to those of you who really want to protect your ideas. His podcast, The Briefing, is also a huge outlet that briefs about, cases that involve intellectual property, but also just, again, if you're a creator or you're building something, it's a great resource to get that information from. So let's welcome, proud to say my friend, but also our guest on the Paint Method podcast. Let's welcome Scott Hervey. We are all on our paint journey, but where are we now? And where do we go next? This is how. Passion, action, intent, new, teach. This is the Paint Method. Scott, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate that.
My pleasure, David.
Yeah. So we were just saying we go way back. I mean, I think you saw me grow up, basically.
Possibly, yeah. Pretty much when you just really came into your own with the performance art side of your business. That's when we started to work together. I think my firm hired you, and that's how I met you.
That's right. I think they did. And then you saw me perform, and I think maybe the next day or so, Actually, that night you invited me, said, hey, why don't you come by the office? Just tell me more about what you're doing. This is what I do. I specifically work on intellectual property. You're an artist. And, just to get to know each other. And I went to your office and you were just so welcoming at the time. And I was no one. And you were just so welcoming. And we've just not only kept in contact through the years, but we've also been able to work together as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That was back when I was living in Northern California.
Yes.
Which is, I have not lived in Northern California for the last, I think, 10 or 11 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a long time. I mean, I have seen you grow as a performer, as an artist, as a father, as a human. It's been a really wonderful thing to see. I think it's been, 18 years maybe.
Oh yeah, it has. So we're coming up on it's been 19 years this month. So March is like my paint anniversary. And so next year will be 20 years. And you met me in the beginning. And what I love about this podcast is specifically these early episodes is I'm talking to people who were such a huge part of my foundation about, I had this passion, this vision, this dream, but I was also trying to figure out how to put some action behind it. And, you were one of the people early on who were giving me advice. And so I remember first hearing about the term just intellectual property. And can you explain to just the people listening to this or watching this, how would you define intellectual property?
Oh, sure. Well, there's a couple different types of intellectual property. I mean, intellectual property is a category of non-tangible rights that exist as a matter of law, right? You have copyright, which is one form of intellectual property. You have patents, which is another form of intellectual property. You have trademarks, which is another form of intellectual property. Some people also categorize, trade secrets under intellectual property, but whether it's usually, it's not really, but what the hell, we can count it as intellectual property too. So you've got, you have these four pillars of legal rights: trademark, copyright, patent, and we'll say trade secret as well. And all of those pillars, well, at least with regard to trademark, copyright, and patent, all of those three pillars touch on or can touch on something in the creative or industrial space, right? When you think of patents, patents cover inventions. When you think of trademarks, right, that covers branding. And when you think of copyright, well, that covers and deals with works of art. What you do, David, as a painter, that is covered by copyright.
Yeah. And I think that's so powerful to understand, what intellectual property is, no matter who you are, whether you're, starting a business or you're a creator, because essentially it has built a lot of wealth in this world. It's built the biggest brands that we know because they've created something unique and have also put work in to protect it along the way. So it's not just, defining it as this is yours, but also as someone may infringe on it or may challenge it. They have protection for their ideas.
So let me look up something here. This will surprise you. So sometimes the brand value is actually worth, so that's the value of the goodwill that is attributable to a particular brand or trademark. Sometimes that value exceeds the value of the physical assets that make up that business. Like, I just looked it up real quick because I was curious, and this is a good benchmark, but Coca-Cola's brand in 2021 was valued at $87.6 billion US dollars. That's probably worth more than all of their trucks and plants and bottling machines and anything else, all their physical assets. It's probably worth more than that. And it's not uncommon to have brand value worth more than or at least as much as all of the physical assets of a company. I mean, think about, why do you pay more for, Nike shoes than some other type of shoe, or Adidas, depending upon what
Part
camp
of it
you're
is the reaction of what people look and see and feel when you're wearing it. So there's value in you personally being associated with it, and then the reaction that you get from others. And that's something that, yes, like you gave the example of Coca-Cola, that there's a brand value, but even those feelings, the brand association that you have as a consumer can even far exceed that because of what it does for you personally in your life.
Right. Well, I mean, brands do two things, right? Brands are like, they're a promise from the manufacturer to a consumer. Like, this is what you're getting. So everybody knows when they buy a Honda, the quality and craftsmanship of a type of car. But there's also something about owning and driving a Porsche. I mean, you're getting a great car, but there's also a status symbol behind the Porsche brand, or the Ferrari brand, or any of those types of vehicles. And that's kind of thing what you were talking about, the where the feeling not only that you get, but also the kind of persona that the brand has in and of itself, and that it attributes to you, right? I mean, if I pull up in a Porsche or a Ferrari, like, you're going to think I'm a baller. If I pull up in a Honda, you might not
or in
think
debt,
I am.
either one.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Yeah.
But no, and I think that also applies to, let's just say, the brand value of a creator, the brand value of entertainers, and
Sure.
in that world, because you work with a lot of creators, you work with artists like myself, but in this world today, as creators are huge stars, and also they become brands and businesses among themselves. At what point does a creator come to you and say, "Look, I've built this audience. How do I start protecting it?" Or is it usually something like a case that comes up where they say, "I need help with this," and then they realize, "Oh my God, I have something to protect"?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, sometimes it comes up, like if they built a program, or like a television program, or an audiovisual program, right? Or they have a YouTube channel, or they have like something that they regularly create and put out there into the world, and have users that consume it. The reason why you think about branding, and you think about how you put a brand on something, whether it's a series of paintings, or whether it's a podcast, or whether it's a television program, or whatever it may be, because the repetition builds awareness. It begins to build awareness of that particular type of content. It separates you from everybody else, or separates that product from all the other products in the marketplace. And it's how you differentiate yourself, whatever the product is, in a crowded marketplace.
Yeah, I started to understand at least the value in my brand early on when we started doing live performances. So early on, I would do these commission paintings or live paintings, and I would make money just from the art alone. Well, when we started doing performances, there was a separate value in the presentation. And we started defining the difference between the two, where, there's a performance fee and all those extra things. And then the paintings are sold separately with their own sort of value attached to it. And as a creator or an artist, I think when we start to see the value in ourselves outside of just what we create, but also what we want to project, or what experience that's not tangible, but it's an experience that people can feel and consume in that way, that there's value in it, and it's time to start thinking about protecting that, as you're putting it out into the world.
Yeah, I mean, in the visual art space, right? When you think of brands, it may not just be the name, right? Warhol, Banksy, Garibaldi, whatever. It also might be the style of your particular work. And I mean, a Warhol work is, very, like, a Warhol work just stands out from all the others. And, early on in your days, David, that's why you had all those licensing deals, because your artwork was very unique and very, it had very unique qualities about it. And that is also part of your brand, is the product that you put out and how unique that product is, and the similarities that each new work has to the one before it.
Yeah. Interesting enough about those early days. So I can talk about this now because the gentleman that I'm going to talk about, him and I are great friends now. But back then, I'm sure you remember the artist Justin Bua. He was doing these urban jazz style paintings, which I was, very inspired by early on, but also in my own experience, I was, grew up in hip hop. I loved jazz music. And so I saw him as like, whoa, if he can do it, that's an inspiration. Well, over time, eventually, when I started getting so big, you start cutting into their market. We got the letter from his attorney saying, hey, we feel like you're infringing on this style. And without having the time to explain to him, like, no, there's so many sources of inspiration. I can see that. But at that point, I actually ended up doubling down on performance painting, which is kind of where I am today. But him and I have since, the past couple years became close, and he understands more now than then. But that was an interesting time because I was firsthand experiencing someone looking at me like I was infringing on a specific style of their artwork and so on. But I think that's a constant battle with artists, wanting to be so unique in the marketplace that people start comparing. That looks like a Garibaldi, or at the time that looked like a Bua, which was interesting.
Right.
But we're close now, so we can joke around about that now. Now, before you started specializing in intellectual property, and I know you do so many other things too. I mean, I know that you advise venture capitalists to TV, television deals. But what about the early years? Was there a sign early on that sort of clicked with you when you were interested in law in general? Like, what was that moment like when what were those series of events like for Scott Hervey?
Oh, well, I mean, I passed the bar and became a lawyer in a down economy. So I was happy just to be able to have a job when I first started out. I did a lot of different things, and I'm grateful for the experience that I had. Doing a lot of different things, I think it's important in whatever it is you do to try a lot of different things because they're all building blocks to where you actually end up. And regardless whether it's law or painting, right, or whatever it may be, it's all building blocks. It's all experience. Experience is never lost, right? It's never, having an experience and learning from your experience is never a waste of time, and it's never a waste of time. It's always additive to what it is you end up doing. So, I started just as an associate doing all kinds of different things. I was a litigator, and I was I worked in a real small firm in Northern California, and I was a transactional attorney. And then this is going to give away my age, but then the first .com boom happened, and I started representing a lot of clients in the tech space and became a little bit more proficient in tech-based transactions and all issues related to technology, which is where I began to develop my skill and expertise in the soft IP fields and the copyright and trademark spaces. And then I had my brother was a television producer, and I started working with him on some of his television projects. and that was how I just started transitioning into the entertainment space. I started doing some of that. I started working with some of the local musicians in Northern California. I had a really, this was back in the day when you could be an independent musician and have an independent record label and actually, actually do okay. This was when people actually used to make money selling records
Yeah.
or CDs.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So, I was a music lawyer as well. And, it all just kept moving in that direction. And then, technology and content continued to coalesce and converge as they continue to do today. And so my experience and expertise in technology and intellectual property and entertainment all just seem to make a whole lot of sense. And there are probably other parts of the law that I could have done and could have been equally good at and could have enjoyed, I'm sure. But this is where it all ended up, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, I still, I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% entertainment. There's still some part of my practice where I'm working with consumer product companies or technology companies, and I'm still working with some VC firms as I help them with their projects as well. But it all is. I'm blessed to be able to work with very interesting and creative clients who are constantly doing fun and exciting things and kind of pushing the boundaries of what it is that they're doing, which causes me to have to think and be very creative and thoughtful with the lawyering that I do.
Yeah. Because you're involved with different types of creators from, I know you work with YouTubers to, television production and movies and so on. Because of the unique position that you're in, do you get an insight to where the convergence of art, technology, and entertainment is going?
I think so. I like to think I have I'm not Jeff Bezos, but I like to think I have some idea of where things are going. You could just kind of see it, if you see it often enough, and you read about it often enough, then you think then you lay over that your own experience. I think I have an idea of where things are going. For example, NFTs, I think we're just barely scratching the surface of the use case for NFTs. I think that the use of NFTs for I think NFTs are great. When I say NFTs, I'm talking actually though about the underlying technology, the blockchain technology. I think it's a great platform for delivering a wide variety of content, not just art. I think that the value is not necessarily wholly based on the technology platform, meaning that the crazy amounts of money that people are paying now for art-based NFTs or sneaker-based NFTs that don't seem to have any correlation to the price of the physical object. I think that's just irrational exuberance. But NFTs as a delivery platform, as a mechanism for verifying ownership, authenticity, tracking sales, chain of title, et cetera. That is a great use case. And I think the opportunity to use NFTs for promotional value, for a distribution model, the ability to know your customer, remarket to your customer, NFTs present all of those opportunities. And it's, I think it will present artists and entrepreneurs with great opportunities to sell stuff directly to consumers, to distribute content to consumers, to maybe get around kind of the existing gatekeepers for content delivery, right? You know, you don't need to deliver music through iTunes quite possibly anymore. Like, you know, Kings of Leon distributed their new album partially via NFT, and it was very successful. That, you know, they didn't need to distribute it via iTunes. Now, you know, there are certainly, we're certainly in the early stages, and there's certainly some problems with, you know, intercompatibility between wallets and the ability to display or use your NFT. I mean, how do you, if you buy an NFT that's an album, will it work with my Sonos? Like, I don't know. Yeah. But these are problems that will all be solved. Yeah. They will all be solved. So,
I mean, it's just like, you know, the early .com days, which you would be familiar with. Yep. And so where it's sort of a Wild West right now. I remember exactly a year ago, and I think you and I were on a Clubhouse chat around that time. And for some reason, Clubhouse was this platform that NFT talks were happening on, and has since has moved to Twitter Spaces. But it was, I just kind of threw myself into that world to just listen to the language. It's sort of like when people ask me, do you speak Spanish? And I'm like, well, throw me into Spanish speaking place for a few days and I'll probably pick it up. Same thing with NFTs. It's a new language that we're learning as creators, as entrepreneurs, and how to use the technology. So not looking at it just like a delivery for art and verifying the ownership, but there's so many other, case uses, and every day I see these projects from Gary V's project with using the NFTs as an access to his convention, and they're selling for exorbitant amounts of money. I mean, I can understand why anyone would be skeptical of that, but it's still, you know, game changing as a creator. And so on one side, I think it opened up a huge world for digital artists mainly. Because before, those digital artists were only being sort of a work for hire, work for a studio, do a commercial or so on, and they didn't have an opportunity to create art and put value in a single video or piece. And now, as they mint it on the blockchain, they can create a piece of art, digital art, that can be owned by someone. Now, how that person, puts value into that or displays it, or that's still, you know, we'll have to let time tell. But it's still exciting to be living in a time where it's a Wild West for creatives and technologists all at once.
Well, yeah, I mean the inherent value in a piece of artwork that can be displayed digitally only, that became valuable well before NFTs, right? Could you imagine, you know, a potential buyer of artwork saying like, what do you mean there's no physical piece? You mean I can't hang it on my wall? What are you talking about, right? But now it's understood that, oh yeah, like I'll display this on a, you know, screen that I will buy that will display all my NFT artwork, and I will put it on my wall in my house and have it like I do a painting. And it's only due to the change in consumer habits and this, the understanding that this is now a norm, right? That this is something that is normal. It's okay. It's not weird. That is what opened up that market for digital artists to be able to sell works of art directly to consumers, and for consumers to buy it and have an understanding of what they're supposed to do with it.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious what you think about this thought, because I usually get a response from people that say, if I buy an NFT, I can't hold it. What do I do with it? And how is there value in it? So then I give the argument that Marvel, or owned by Disney, who owns, let's just say, what's a popular Marvel, Iron Man, who owns Iron Man, all the movies. Technically, you can't physically hold those movie files either. but each file or each piece of content that comes from that is worth, let's just say, in upwards of billions of dollars in that brand. And so, I think I try to give that example of look, there's brands that exist that you can't hold or touch it, but it still has immense value, and they can sell pieces of it, they can license it, and so on. Do you think that's a safe argument for NFTs, in a sense that even though it's digital and you can't hold it, making that comparison of value to it?
Well, one commentator referred to NFTs as the ownership layer of the internet. I think it requires the fundamental idea shift in what constitutes ownership. I mean, we have forever thought of ownership as relating to, the tangible objects, right? As a species, we are hunters and gatherers. So our concept of ownership and worth is based on the physical collection of things, right? But as we just talked about earlier, value may be held by non-tangible items, right? The value of the Coca-Cola brand, like a Coca-Cola brand. I mean, you can hold a trademark registration certificate in your hand, but you can't hold the Coca-Cola brand in your hand. It's not tangible, but it is extremely valuable. And so you can build up these tools and mechanisms to show ownership and prove ownership, and you can have agreements to allow third parties to monetize non-tangible assets, and you can buy non-tangible assets, but it's still a non-tangible asset. It's not something you can hold. So, I mean, the concept of the ownership of non-tangible assets has been around for quite some time. And maybe this is just the kind of leakage of that concept into the general public.
Yeah.
Because NFTs are not something that you can physically hold in your hand, but that's okay.
It's almost like an everyday person can own a piece of what it feels like to own intellectual property, to own something that's non-tangible in a sense. It's like a gateway. And also I think about there's not a lot of dirt. They're not making any more dirt or land. Unless you're putting a pile of sand in the middle of the ocean, there's no more dirt to make. And so the value that's gone up, it's sort of like creating new land. It's a digital landscape now. And giving people an opportunity.
That's the metaverse, right? That's exactly what the metaverse is, right?
It's like no more land in the real world. We're making our own. I mean, what a great response to that. But
yeah.
So,
and I guarantee you. I mean, look, do you remember Second Life? Was it Second Life or Second World or
Second World? It's a
Second
World 2, I think. I know
we might be wrong. It might be. Let's look on the computer and see what it was.
Yeah, we got to look that up. But I'm familiar with. They're selling pieces of Earth 2. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I mean, so Second Life was Second Life, and it was in 2003, and it was like Metaverse 1.0.
Yeah,
and there were in the legal profession, there were all kinds of people that were talking about, we're gonna, there will be transactions in Second Life. We will sell homes. We will do this. We will do that. And there will be a structure to the Second Life metaverse as there is to the real world. But this is a metaverse. It's not real. It's not tangible. I'm not going to say it's not real. It's not tangible because reality is reality is what you say it is.
Yeah, that's true. And also reality is what ideas have become over time, ideas that, planning behind it, skill sets to bring them to life, teams at some point. But, we're surrounded with the world of ideas that have been brought to life. So I want to ask you this. You've seen many types of creators. Again, I've given some examples earlier. But what advice would you give to creators that, let's just say they're starting out, but now they're newly professional, they're making a living off of this? What advice would you give them in general to start protecting their brand and thinking a decade in advance of what it could be?
Sure. Good question. And it's not just about protecting your brand. It's also about just protecting your business and protecting yourself. It's important, like you did, David, early on in your career, to build your team. Having a lawyer involved in what you do is extremely valuable. And if you can't afford a lawyer at that point in time, maybe having a manager or an agent that is experienced and knows how to read a contract. Because if you're a young creator or a new creator, and there's lots of mistakes that can be made, and mistakes can be very costly. And there are choices that you need to make about entering into business relationships with certain brands or certain people or certain companies. And those sometimes require somebody who's been around and seen some things and can give you some advice and can kind of temper that enthusiasm that creators have, like, to just do every deal that comes their way, when sometimes the best deal you can do is the deal that you didn't do.
Yeah, that's true.
Because sometimes bad deals cost a lot.
That's a clip right there. We're putting Scott on. That's a great piece of advice. Personally, I don't even remember when I did that TV show. I came to you and I said, hey, they want to put me in a management contract from doing this show. And we had to go back at them and say, and honestly, it was a lot of advice from you that helped me think bigger. It was like, look, what about 5-10 years? And it's been 10 years now since then. So, what about 10 years from now? Like, do you want to be, stuck with this? And so those were some really hard decisions that I had to make. Ultimately, we were able to figure out a way. And we don't have to talk specifically about that, but we were, because I had that outside advice, like we want to give artists, it helped me in the long run. And I didn't have that ultimate cost of giving away so much of my career.
Oh, yeah. Look, our firm has a very active influencer marketing practice. Like, we represent a few other partners in my firm represent a significant number of digital media influencers. And they're constantly busy doing brand deals. And the brands can be extremely aggressive, and they can ask for a lot, and they can try to require a lot of exclusivity. And, you have to have somebody else on your side who has done hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of these deals, and knows what's industry standard, what's marketplace, and also kind of can see beyond just this immediate deal and can see how this one deal can have a large impact on your, other future business opportunities.
Yeah. And the world we're living in today, in 2020, when I was at home, there was no shows on the books because of the pandemic. I just started posting on TikTok. I mean, I would post 3 times a day because we had this huge catalog of video from the past, 5 years we had been filming. And so within months, we got up to about 1.9 million followers on TikTok, which we have today. And and this is already so far into my career, I'm not even thinking about TikTok as like a place to get brand deals. And then all of a sudden, we start getting requests from brands to do these. And I think one of the biggest case uses, because this can happen to anyone. If you have an idea, if you have a family that you want to put on there, if you have there's so many niches that you can put out there that can build a huge audience. It can really happen to anyone, and you can be surprised by the opportunities out there. But one of the biggest things that we were trying to stay aware of was the use of the content outside of the platform. So they were sort of requesting, paying one price to be able to use it across platforms, and we had to really hone in on that and say, no, we're gonna protect it to this one single platform, so it doesn't end up being used in, say, a commercial without having to renegotiate the agreements.
Oh yeah, that's a constant challenge that our lawyers face in dealing with these brand deals. It's just narrowing the scope because the brands want everything and they don't want to pay as much as they should. That's just the way of the world.
That's business.
And it's about having someone on your side that can identify what the words say and what they mean, and make sure that the brand is basically just getting what it's paying for and not anything more.
Yeah, for sure. So you have a podcast yourself that you do. It's called The Briefing. I would love for you to share about that, because I think I've gone on there and I've seen just some of the titles. I've read some of the blogs and the podcasts, but there's a wealth of knowledge on there. Can you talk about what inspired that and what your goal is with that?
Yeah, that's right. I do it with my partner, Josh Escovedo, who I believe you know, David, and work with as well. Yeah. And the Briefing by the IP Law Blog is really an extension of our firm's blog that we've been authoring for over 10 years. I think actually close to 20 almost. And the blog started because we were writing a weekly column for a legal newspaper in California. And so we were writing all this work, writing all these articles, and we figured, okay, let's just use it elsewhere, right? We own it. Let's make sure that we're utilizing it as best as possible. And so that's how we started the blog. And from the consumption of information kind of has changed, right? From reading. I mean, people still read, but it's kind of moved from blogs to podcasts and to a degree, videos of the podcasts. And I just wanted to use this as a test case to see, would we get subscribers? Would people be interested? How would our content be received? And it's been received really well. We have a significant number of viewers and subscribers. We're also distributed through a legal content aggregator called JD Supra. And Josh and I are the top authors in our segment through JD Supra. I have clients that listen to it, and I've gotten calls from clients who've listened to a podcast and have, asked me to do certain projects because of a topic on a podcast that they've listened to. As lawyers, though, you constantly have to be on top of what's going on, because the law is an ever-changing thing, right? It's not static. The law is not static. It is active and constantly changing. And as lawyers who practice in a field that is constantly changing, you need to be on top of it. And this is a perfect opportunity for us to maintain our knowledge in a constantly changing, ever-evolving space, and share our knowledge with others.
Yeah. The PAINT method is about this journey that we're all on, starting with passion, putting action behind it, at some point intent or a bigger purpose, new situations that help us grow. And this last part, which is what you're talking about with the podcast and the blog, is about teaching. It's really imparting knowledge and recognizing that, look, I'm in a unique place like you, and I want to impart some knowledge. And I'll say it right now, look, creators or anyone out there, law is not sexy to most people. I get it. But it is so vital and important to just get familiar with the language, because it could become a huge asset to you as you're growing, as you will, and to make sure that you know what questions to ask. I think the worst place you could be is not being familiar with the language and then really not knowing what question to ask. And you could end up in a situation where everything you worked for could be at risk, or it could be very costly. So I
agree with you. I mean, look, we try to keep our topics very contemporary. We try to keep the language and concepts like real approachable. It's not overly dense. It's not very long. I think it's relatively interesting. I mean, as a lawyer, it's interesting. As a non-lawyer, I don't know, but the things that we cover, there's bound to be something of interest there for anybody, and you'll learn. You'll definitely learn. I mean, if you just like showing up sometimes is just half the battle, and if you just show up and listen and pay attention, you'll learn something.
Yeah. And by the way, just to show how relevant it is, I saw the recent one you did on the StockX and Nike NFT case, or I guess it's a case now. Is that a case, or is it?
Yeah, it is. It is a case. I mean, there's been a lot of lawsuits involving intellectual property and NFTs, and we've covered a few of them. You can definitely get your share of NFT lawsuits and issues on our blog or on our podcast.
Yeah, I would highly recommend just subscribing to it, reading it or listening to it, because there's a wealth of knowledge that Scott and Josh are putting onto the world. So I appreciate that. But your time is valuable. I appreciate you just being here, Scott, and the help that you've given me throughout the years, and even just the advice now as well. So I appreciate anything you want to leave our listeners or viewers with when it comes to, they've got these big ideas, their ideas have value. What advice would you leave them with before we end this?
I don't think you can do everything, right? Make sure that you understand your lane and put together a good team that can help you with all your challenges that you're going to face. Like you've done, David. I mean, you've done a great job in putting together a good team, whatever it is you're going into. I mean, I remember the conversations you and I had about doing YouTube, a long time ago. And you experimented with some things. Your Art Life series in particular, I thought was fantastic, and I loved it.
I mean, I just like throwing stuff out in the world. Like, let's see how this feels and how can we consistently do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's important, right? These are not legal pieces of advice. I think maybe these are just like how to live your life and do your thing pieces of advice. But just doing what feels right to you and throwing it out to the world and seeing how the world responds to it, and then figuring out whether or not it's something you want to continue or not, putting it out there and seeing how it feels to you. You've done a really great job of doing that and finding your lane and trying different things. And I think you've always committed. That's another important thing, right? If you're going to try something different, commit to it for a while. And when you commit to it, like, don't half-ass it, like commit so that you really know whether or not it's going to bear fruit or not. Then if you do what you love, if you do what you love, people say success will come. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it certainly has been true for you. So I like to think it is true in general. So I think it also takes hard work. It takes hard work too. We can't just be like, do what you love and then expect it to happen. It's do what you love, commit, work hard, and show up every day to do the hard work, and then success will come, right?
Absolutely. It's the pairing of passion and discipline. Those two things. I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot. I'm going to do a future podcast on it, but I'm not always motivated. I'm not always inspired, but I always have to show up. And that is why almost 20 years later, we get to have these conversations. So.
Yeah.
Scott.
So that's our advice. Show up. And thanks for letting me show up. Thanks for letting me show up here today with you, David.
Oh no, it's my pleasure. It's always great to just have a conversation with you, whether we're doing this or just hanging out as well. So we'll definitely have to connect when I'm down there down south. Actually, which will be soon. I'll let you know off air.
Great.
Yes.
Please do. I'd love to see you IRL.
Very fitting. All right. Thank you so much, Scott. I appreciate it. And we'll be plugging all your contact info in the description on the links. And thanks for being here on the Paint Method podcast.
See you, David.